So my name's Marnie Webb. I've worked at TechSoup for the last 22 years. I've had the opportunity of working with all of these human beings that are from all over the world so that we can support change makers in accessing and using digital technology. We also work with communities to help them be able to optimize that technology for good. So we've built apps from my personal favorite range, which helps a US-based school-age child be able to find the location of a free meal during the summertime. Right? They can open up the app, there the blue dot, the red dot is a place that they can go in and get something to eat for free, no questions asked, no piece of paper to fill out, nothing else. To Worker Connect, which supported migrant workers on the World Cup being able to anonymously report on workplace issues. We got to all of those projects by working with the community and building on the base of technology resources that we'd shared. And all of that work has left me with an agenda that I would like to share with you now, which is making sure that organizations of all sizes, in all countries, everywhere on the planet, have access to the technology that they need to be able to do their job. And that means the kind of technology we support getting to organizations, things like Microsoft's products, Google's products, Slack's products, Adobe's products. But it also means the technology that's built for organizations, technology whose whole purpose is to help them achieve their mission, and it has them as their core of their context. Specifically, we're very interested in thinking about the people that are making that purpose-built technology. The folks who are professionals and feel a responsibility, like Turn does, for a product that's been made and put out into the community. These makers are all kinds of people. They're not just technologists. They're people with technological imaginations. They're development officers that feel a passion for raising funds to be able to build something. They are program managers that just see a better way of being able to accomplish something. And we wanted to understand what those people meant, the people that stayed up late at night working on an idea that they had, the people who were the ones sweating if a product stopped working, the people that were worried about continuing to fund it. What was blocking them? What could we do to help them make the technology that they were developing more successful out into the field? So we started, like all good human beings do, with a literature review. So we went out and said, what have people already said about this? And every time I have a high school age daughter, and every time my daughter hears me say literature review, she literally rolls my eyes. Or she doesn't roll my eyes, because that would be really painful for me personally. She rolls her eyes at me and just totally scoffs, but we do them anyway. So we did a literature review, and what we found in the literature overall is that makers were absent. They talked about tools, they talked about data, they talked about funding, they talked about the success or lack of success of products, but they did not actually talk about the people who were making the products and what was necessary. In the course of that, we found and were very inspired by a book called Power to the Public that had 3 big ways of organizing, thinking about how you supported people that were making public interest technology. They talked about design, data, and delivery. So we used that as a cornerstone of reaching out and doing a set of qualitative interviews with makers. We worked backwards from the products that we saw in the world, and we were like, that's an awesome product that's doing good, and then talked to the people that built it. And then we analyzed those results. And based on that work, we added the idea of impact and community. Because what we heard from them was that their need to describe the change that their product made, and their need to be in community with the organizations that they were serving and with one another. And so with all of that in mind, and the experience that we have organizationally in working with small civil society organizations in 236 countries and territories, I want to share 5 tips. So it's 5 so that you know exactly when my talk will end. And I'll go through it very, very clearly. This is 1. So the first part is to create a design team that really represents the diversity of individuals that you're going to require to make a product successful. That means bringing in the funders early on It means in bringing in community-based organizations, community members too, when that's possible. It means bringing in government officials. We found that often funders and government officials are left out of the conversation. When they're in the conversation, community organizations are left out. You know? And you need them all, or the product's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to get it out there. You're not going to be able to get it supported. 2. One of the big lacks that makers reported, and actually the literature talked about too, was that there is not available data to tell us about the problems that communities are addressing. So that left us strongly believing that whenever you're starting a public interest technology product, you have to describe the data that's required to illuminate the issue that you're dealing with a level of fidelity that allows you to contribute to that overall data set and data pool, and also allows you to combine that data with the work of other organizations and entities whenever that's appropriate. So a quick example of what I mean, I mentioned the app that we did, Range, that I love so much. One of the things that we were able to do because we were working that app is actually show a map of the way that meal sites opened and closed across the United States. And we can show that over 6 years because that's how long we've been running it. So we're able to make that data available year in and year out, which is something that the states in the US didn't have and the federal government didn't have because just nobody was organizing the data in a way that allowed you to look at it again later. And so we think that's very important. The step that we so often don't get to and advocate internally and externally is that you make that data and the data schemes public in a way that allows other people to contribute to the same kind of data set. So if they find other meal sites, they're able to put them into that same data set, and it can get richer over time. 3, onboarding does not ever stop when you're bringing organizations on. Turnover in nonprofit organizations and civil society organizations is so high that wonderful advocate that knew everything about your tool and is working on it leaves for a new job, and with them goes the institutional memory of the product that you spent all this time putting into organizations. We have learned that we have to really, really, really watch the overall use, and the second that we see an organization slow down, call them. Because it almost always means there's been turnover, and a slowdown is going to get followed with a complete drop because there's just not great sharing. So we've just built this, we call it reboarding, which is about just a regular touch point with organizations. We try to make sure there are at least 3 people that know how to use the product and can be advocates for it internally. We've learned to identify people that we should be sharing reports with quarterly so we can bring what in the for-profit world is often called a customer success model into supporting organizations' continued use, not just that they start. 4, develop an ambitious theory of change. So here's this thing we heard from makers over and over again. They had no idea how to express what their product was trying to do to funders. They did not speak the same language. They were talking about users. They were talking about growth. They were talking about retention. Great things, but it was all inside the product they were making and trying to get out into the world. And they needed to have the courage, actually, to say, actually, we think this is going to help democracy be better because it's going to enable people to talk about the issues or report on issues at voting sites, or because it's combating mis and disinformation. They needed to have the courage of that ambition that was at the heart of why they stayed up late building the tool in the first place, of saying it and providing an argument in its favor and demonstrating progress towards it. 5, see, now you know I'm almost done. You have to be intentional about the communities of purpose and practice that you join. I was stunned by the fact that we had people responding to the interview that were moving from their small hometown to go to a big city because they couldn't find people to talk to about what they were working on. They didn't feel welcome by the tech community. Sometimes they didn't feel welcome by the nonprofit community. And they wanted people around them that understood the context that they were bringing to this work, that understood that there was not some big for-profit payday coming from their innovative use of technology. There was a social payoff, right? And a reason that they were doing it. We also found, unsurprisingly, almost all of the women that we interviewed actually asked that their interviews not be recorded. And almost all of them did not feel welcome in the tech community. And that's everybody's job, right? To make these communities of practice and communities of purpose that are welcoming. So if the existing ones are not, and you're privileged to be able to be a part of it, you got to change it so other people can join it. If they won't change, form your own community. I'm in a wonderful community that's called Data Heroines, and it is a group of female data nerds from around the world that provide support for each other. And all kinds of support, getting speaking gigs, getting funding, introducing them to opportunities. It's a wonderful community that's helping provide a stage for people that may not feel comfortable or able to get it otherwise. That's an incredibly necessary part because all of those social proofs are a huge indicator of actually successfully getting funding. Like the people that successfully get funding are the people that have gotten funding in the past. You know, so that kind of support is super necessary. And that's it. That's it.